This Ottawa County Board of Commissioners meeting. The date is Tuesday, November 9th. Our invocation today is by Commissioner Meplink, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Sherry Sales. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we come before you this afternoon, our Lord. We thank you for allowing us to gather here to discuss matters of business for Ottawa County. We pray for your blessing upon those in attendance, the commissioners that are here, the employees, the staff of Ottawa County. We ask for guidance and wisdom in the deliberations that take place. We pray for your blessing and safety for all of our Ottawa County deputies and our sheriff, our medical responders, and our firemen throughout the county. We ask that you'll keep them safe. We pray that you will be with our men and women protecting our nation so that we can be here as free people today. We ask now for your blessing. In your name alone we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mr. Garcia.
Here.
Mr. Baumann.
Here.
Mr. Zylstra.
Here.
Mr. Dannenberg.
Here.
Mr. Mephilink.
Here.
Mr. Terpstra.
Here.
Mr. Hoflor.
Here.
Mr. DeYoung.
Here.
Mr. Kyers. Mr. Bergman.
Here.
Mr. Fensky.
Here. Thank you. Next thing is presentation of petitions and communications. I believe we have something from the sheriff, Steve. Mr. Kempker.
Good afternoon. We do have quite a few people here for the presentation that we're going to make today. And we're going to have a few of them file in. And with me is Director Pete McWaters from Ottawa County Central Dispatch. So I'll let people file in here a sec.
Come on in.
Come on in.
Come on into the front row so we can see your faces. There's more still coming in.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody that's here today. As you know, these are special events for us when we give an award out to a deputy. And I think, again, it reiterates to this board and to our community the outstanding law enforcement professionals that we have in the sheriff's office. And again, I always say it, the best sheriff's office in the state of Michigan, but also the dispatchers from Ottawa County Central Dispatch. The ones behind the scenes, again, Pete, thank you for your staff and everything that you do for this community also. So I'm going to ask that a short sound clip be played. This is a life-saving award that we're giving out today. Some pictures should come up on the screen if things go well, and we'll start with this a moment. And really just sit back and listen to this for a minute.
Hi guys, it's Philip. Ottawa County 911. We got a fire. Okay, yeah, into that. Oh my gosh, it's filling up with smoke, the whole house. Okay. I can't get outside, I couldn't see. You can't get outside and you will just drop to the floor and crawl? I can't see. I can't breathe. Okay, drop to the floor, okay, get low. Do you have anything that you can cover your mouth with? My bathroom. Your bathroom, yeah, just try to cover your mouth, okay, so you don't breathe in the smoke. Okay. 3636 flames coming from the north side of the house. Flames from the north side at 424. Someone's talking to you, that's good. Can't get out, they can't see, they can't breathe. Okay, well, can you wait? Oh, gotcha. Pulling you out. I see that we gotta get everything up. Okay? 7636, I got her out of the house. 7636 has the resident out of the structure at 425. Ottawa County 911. We got a fire. Okay, where's it at?
I think as you can hear from the soundbite, and what I'll do after the meeting today is I'll send you that soundbite to your email so you can listen to it. It's quite remarkable, the job that was done by the dispatchers and by our deputy that was first on scene. And again, this incident happened on October 1 of this year in the early morning hours at the 8,000 block of 146th Avenue. It came in as a residential fire. The deputy that was in that area was Deputy Cassie Tolman of the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office. And as you heard partially on the call into dispatch, the residence was filling with smoke very rapidly with flames. The caller, who is here today, Joyce. I'd like to introduce to you Joyce Still. And Joyce, we're glad you're here with us today. So as Deputy Tolman arrived on the scene, dispatch was able to guide her in to the location where Joyce was at, and Deputy Tolman was able to safely and quickly remove Joyce from the residence as the residence was fully engulfed in heavy smoke and flames. So with that, again, our review committee looked at this and submitted it to myself and the undersheriff, and we all hands down agreed for the Lifesaving Award to be awarded to Deputy Cassie Tolman. Cassie. So again, Cassie, on behalf of the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office, we'd like to present you the certificate and your pins for the Lifesaving Award for the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office for the action that you took in the life-saving action for the rescue of Joyce out of her burning residence, and again presented today by myself and the undersheriff. But again, we can't thank you enough. We're extremely proud of you. A lot of people in this room, and again, keep up the great work for us.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Director McWaters.
Good afternoon. Again, Pete McWaters with Ottawa County Central Dispatch. Thanks for having us today. Back after this fire, it happened at 4:15 in the morning. So our third shift is here today. Everyone that was working that night is here. I got an email from Captain Schrader, who's here with Grand Haven Township Fire, and the Chief of Port Sheldon. A nice, well-written letter indicating that the efforts of our team and the Sheriff's Department likely saved Joyce's life. So we listened to everything. What you heard there, or you're going to hear later in the email, is just a snippet of what we listened to. And let me tell you, it's impressive, and I'm very proud to be here. It makes me very proud to be in the profession that we're all in, helping people and providing the service we do. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to the staff that was working that night. Emma Behrens, right here, was the call taker. She was working fire dispatch. She ended up handling the call and speaking with Joyce. And then Zoe, where's Zoe? Hallam took over fire dispatch, actually. Again, teamwork on the team, on the shift that night, and helped dispatch the units to the scene. Sale Ambituvich. I've known Sale how many years? 25 years. I still have trouble with her name. She was working as well and helped get the information from fire dispatch and direct the deputy in. And again, if you listen to the whole tape, it's quite amazing because, you know, they're getting what location, what room, what window, that sort of thing. And then the next thing you hear was what you heard at the end of that recording was, we got her out. Amazing work there. Sonia Vanderswag was also working, helped out with the dispatch, and Shonda Walski is our supervisor in charge of everyone. So we have a little bit different process in terms of the award. We're a separate entity, but for their efforts that night, Emma is going to get a Lifesaver Award, which we will present. And then the rest of the team is going to get a Team Performance Award. So again, as director, I'm very proud to stand up here and represent this organization. And again, listening to what occurred and hearing what occurred, I'm just very proud to be in this profession and work with the people that I work with. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, any questions at all?
Any questions? Anyone?
Again, I would just again, from the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office, from the staff, thank this board for allowing us to do what we do every day in this community, and to our staff, because the staff of the Sheriff's Office is what makes the Sheriff's Office and the service that we provide to our community. And it's obvious here, this is one of many great acts over the years of the Sheriff's Office. But again, Cassie, thank you. And to the dispatchers, thank you. Again, that silent majority in that background, a lot of people don't realize about the dispatch, but it played a huge vital role in this incident. So again, thank you for your time today. We were going to present to you today also the 2 new canine units. However, the flu bug's going around a little bit, and we're going to move that out to a couple more board meetings ahead of us today. So again, thank you for your time today.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Just thank you very much for having us, and a great partnership with the Sheriff's Department and the fire departments.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
The next thing on our agenda is Hezekiah Smith Historical Marker Proclamation, Mayor Rebecca Hopp from the city of Ferrisburg.
Good afternoon. I'm Rebecca Happ, the mayor of the city of Ferrisburg, and I'm excited to share with you today a collaboration between the city and 2 students at the Career Line Tech Center. The students created a QR code that linked the city's website to the historical marker page and an audio recording about the marker. In 2020, I completed the research, applied for, and received the Michigan Historical Marker, which was the first for our city, and it was dedicated in August of 2021. This historical marker recognizes the accomplishment of Hezekiah Smith, a freed African-American who was a landowner and civil rights activist for Ottawa and Muskegon counties in the late 1840s until his passing in 1896. Alan Palmbus, who's able to join me today, is a senior at Jenison High School in the Software and Game Development program, created the QR code and the links to the city website historical page. Ethan Doxey, a senior at Hamilton High School, is not with us today, and he is a student in the Entrepreneurial and Global Business class where I team teach, and he created the audio recording for the historical marker. What makes this a unique collaboration even more exciting is this project has created opportunities for individuals with visual impairments to learn about Hezekiah Smith and his contributions to the community. Through my research and conversations with the Michigan Historical Center, Michigan Department of Natural Resources, this project is also the very first project to have a link QR code to the audio recording of a Michigan historical marker for the state, Our amazing students have created a legacy for the state of Michigan, the city of Ferrisburg, the Career Line Tech Center in both Hamilton and Jenison High School. I personally want to thank the students for their willingness to help. And during both of their school board meetings, both last night at Hamilton and 2 weeks ago at Jenison, I presented both of the students a proclamation of thank you from the city of Ferrisburg. And I want to thank Chairman Bergman for allowing us to share this story today, because it's been very exciting, and this is a legacy that will put Ottawa County on the map. So,
Any
thank you very
questions
much.
for Rebecca? Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming again also. What was your first name again?
Aiden.
Ann. Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is public comment. This is one of two times this afternoon. Anyone from the public can comment. We're going to give you 2 minutes to come before the board and give us your name and address or where you're from, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. All right. So who is first?
Our first speaker is David Zarnowski.
David, you get 2 minutes,
I don't know what I'll do with
whether you
it.
need it or not.
Right. My name's David Zarnowski. I vote in Port Sheldon Township and I live in West Olive. I've been coming here so consistently that I got the impression that just seeing this would tell you support the health department. But then there was a point where I started to worry, if I don't sign up to speak, I may not get into the room. I may not be here every visit following, so I came to not to say goodbye, but to say that I will still be watching. I will be getting even more involved. I've offered my services to the recruitment department to find somewhere I might serve the county. I'm going to get more involved in the county's business. I'm going to stay focused on it, and I forgot the last part. I was at least, but the phone didn't go off this time. And that'll be it, I guess. So,
Thanks, Dave. Who's next?
Our next speaker is Terry White.
So White, I vote in Robinson Township. Is it the CARES money that ties the commissioner's hands? By accepting the COVID money, it makes it seem like you cannot make your own decisions. You seem to be following your lawyer and the health department. They should have no authority here. But maybe the money is what's making this difficult because you seem not to be able to stop this. They will soon want you to mandate the vaccine. Are you ready to mandate the vaccine to children to stay in school? The commission should hold back the money to the health department by refusing CARES money from the federal government. So I guess
Thanks,
I
Teresa.
don't need the whole thing.
Who's next?
Paula Boomhoff.
Hi, I'm Paula Baumhoff from Allendale. I spoke last time as well. We've collected a few more signatures, so I just wanted to make sure that you could see those. And I wanted to remind the people who are here and who are watching and our commissioners that when one of us shows up to a meeting like this, we are representing our community in the same way that 11 men sitting on a board are each representing thousands of people throughout the county districts. Why should we listen to 11 men? Just 11 men out of hundreds of thousands? Because those men are representatives. It's for the same reason the state government should function on our behalf, even if we never attend a state meeting or hearing. We are a representative government and should function as one. Please look at your policies and assess whether they are limiting or expanding your ability to represent the people. Please look at the resolutions and the people before you and respect and consider them thoughtfully as our representatives. We should not be discouraging the process or ignoring people based on attendance or meeting rules. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Paula. Who's next?
Emily Underhill.
Emily Underhill from Allendale. After explaining the First Amendment to my 5-year-old, he said, "But we can only say something nice though, right?" I said, "No. Even if it's not nice, freedom of speech means that you have the right to say what you feel. We still always respect everyone and would never say mean things for no reason, but we still have the right to stand up for ourselves." The new public comment rules this board is voting on today should terrify every single one of us. I don't care where you stand on any issue. We have gone from standing room only in this room on May 25th
everyone able to speak their minds for 3 minutes, as long as we wanted, to spread out, stand outside, no clapping. You get 1 minute. And now they want us to sign a attestation contract stating a list of things, including to remain civil, to remain within civil tone. Who's to judge what civil tone is? That is no different than Facebook censoring with fact checkers. At this point, Bergman, why don't you just tell me what you'd like me to say? Please do not pass this.
Thanks, Emily. Who's next?
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next thing is approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please? Moved and supported. Comments or questions? Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mr. Hofler,
Support.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next thing is consent resolutions. Mr. Fenske.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make the motion to approve consent resolutions 1 through 4.
Support.
And moved and supported. Comments or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I could remove number 1 and number 4, please.
Pardon?
If I could remove number 1 and number 4, please.
You'd like to remove those?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. So we'll call 1 would be from or action items. We can make them 1 and 2 under action items. All right, any other questions? Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Hofler,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Fenske, would you read the first one, please?
First motion to approve the minutes of the October 22nd, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting.
Is there a second for that?
Support.
Okay, comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to, we had a good discussion, I think, 2 weeks ago about the resolution, and I just want to make sure that, at least for my sake, I'm reading the minutes correctly. BC 21-249 says Commissioner Meppelink moved to reverse the ruling of the chair and temporarily suspend board policy and allow the amendment, the original motion to be voted on, the amended motion from Chairman Fenske. The way I read it, looks like there's 2 motions in here. The motion to reverse the ruling and temporarily suspend. From my understanding, the motion to reverse the ruling does not allow the chair to vote, which in that case, the ayes would have had that. However, the temporary suspension of the board policy allows the chair to vote, and it would remain 5-5. So I'm just kind of confused as to, what the actual motion was and how do we count the votes on that motion?
Okay.
I don't know if there's clarification.
Doug?
Well, I think the motion, first of all, the minutes are accurate.
The minutes are accurate for sure.
Yeah.
But it says 5-5, but if you're looking at reversing the ruling of the chair and the chair doesn't get a vote on that appeal, it would have been a 5-4 as opposed to 5-5.
Right. But in order to make the amendment, so the ruling of the chair included that it violated the board rules, okay?
Mhm.
And the board rules to be suspended was Randy's motion. It was a combined motion to reverse the chair and suspend the board rules so the motion could be entertained.
Sure.
That required a 2/3 vote. So one half of the motion, I agree, was a majority vote, and Roger couldn't vote.
Right.
The other half required 2/3 approval. So in that situation where it's the most restrictive vote
Okay.
that governs.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That makes sense. When there's 2 motions put in the same one, the most
Yeah.
restrictive, okay.
And I didn't realize that I couldn't vote.
Yeah.
So
I
even
think we
if
end up
Roger-
in the same place if you look at the most restrictive part of that motion, having preference.
Yeah. And I think there was a question as to whether a reversal motion, had it been a clean reversal motion, required 2/3. And I think I suggested it did, and that's wrong.
Mhm.
It only requires a majority vote,
Right.
and the board chair can't.
Yeah, I think we
vote.
end up in the same place that.
So we do end up in the same place, so
Right.
it worked out inadvertently, I suppose,
Okay.
but it did work out.
I just want to clarify that. I think that, the clerks obviously had the minutes correctly. I just want to make sure that, we're aware of that and going forward, if there is an appeal to the chair, that the folks who are able to vote are voting. So, thank you.
Mr. Fenske, the second one.
The second consent resolution that was removed was actually number 4. It's a draft of proposed 2022 board rules. And the suggested motion is to receive a report from the Rules Committee on the draft of the proposed 2022 board rules.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Unseconded?
Excuse me. Yeah, I was
Let's do
gonna
a vote on
say,
the
we
minutes.
didn't vote on
Oh,
the
okay.
first one.
We didn't vote on the first one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, take the roll. on the
Okay.
first one.
Mr. Zelstra,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Hofler,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, now.
Draft of proposed 2022 board rules. The suggested motion is to receive a report from the Rules Committee on the draft of proposed 2022 board rules.
I believe, Frank, you seconded that?
Well, I'll follow up. It's my understanding, I was just speaking with John about this, that there is still an opportunity to add or modify the rules. That this is just like the first reading at this point. I agree.
Wait a minute, we need a second first.
Yes, I second it. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Is that what you asked? I'm sorry. I thought you were asking for my input already.
Okay.
I'm always anxious to give that.
Okay, good. Okay, got that, Cherry? We got a first, okay, all right. Go ahead, Frank, go ahead.
Well, I'll let
No, I appreciate, because I think what you're just saying is kind of my question on this, is that this is not, as I understand, this is not a first reading, this is accepting for information.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, Emily, I appreciate your point. But we are accepting this for information. We're not taking any votes on this at this time. The vote on the complete board rules with the amendments will be in January. So, but yeah, I was confused on that as well. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And
Well, so I'll pick up then where I left off. It's my understanding that there is still opportunity to modify or add or delete rules. And that now is the time to be able to voice those. But the reason I agreed, the reason I second that was because I believe that David at the last board meeting, our first speaker, actually, raised a very legitimate point, and that was that a resolution came out of a committee discussion that was not on the agenda. And we also discussed at the last board meeting that for the sake of transparency, that we were going to start streaming those meetings. Which we all agreed on, I believe, not all of us, but it passed. My question is that as I thought about David's comment, it made sense that in order for a resolution, in my opinion, to have come out of a committee, it needed to be on the agenda so that the public would have an opportunity to call in or attend and comment on it. So my job, I'm not here to kick a dead horse here, but I would like to see some kind of a language in the rules that in the future that any discussion items be also on the agenda of any committees. Especially if we're thinking that a resolution may be coming out of it. As I thought about that, and as I read the rules this week, under section 2.1 agenda, it does have some type of wording in there which in my opinion is not very clear. And it reads, as a general rule, all substantive agenda items shall be on the agenda and considered at a committee meeting or work session prior to consideration at a meeting of the Board of Commissioners. So I think that we might have overlooked that unless it's vague enough where we could have done that. But if it is, vague enough, I guess I'd like to see some clarification on that. Because I don't think that it's right for the public to not have an opportunity to comment at a committee meeting now, but that we've given them that opportunity. So I would like to see all future possible resolutions or discussions on the agendas of the committee meetings as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner Garcia. When it says considered, do you take that to mean it was talked about or it was voted on?
Well,
because both those two, the resolution as well as the live stream were both talked about, and I don't think there was a formal vote because it wasn't on the agenda.
Right.
I mean, I'm totally in favor of
Yep.
you that anything we see should probably come through committee.
Yeah, my concern
On this
was,
specific, do you mean considered as we should have had a vote at the committee level, or should it have been just talked about at the committee level?
I believe that, in my opinion, that there are opportunities for discussion at all the committees, and that's appropriate. My question is, should those topics of discussions ought to be on the agenda, especially if they're going to result in a resolution that came out of a discussion?
When you said to be voted on then, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think if the rules committee wants to
But
take
does
that
that
up
make
and
sense,
clarify that point.
Doug, or?
I think so. The only concern that I would have is in committee, what you're saying, Commissioner, is that you would like to see before the committee meeting, the resolutions that are going to be presented at the committee meeting for discussion be available so that all the committee
Yes.
members and public gets an opportunity to see what the committee is going to discuss.
Right.
The only problem I have with that is occasionally we put things on the committee agenda at the last minute.
Right, you're right.
Because of the nature of county business and trying to move things along.
You're right.
So, but as a general course,
Yep.
as much notice as possible to the committees would always be desirable.
Yeah, I think I'm confusing a couple of terms here. My understanding is that the resolution that we discussed last board meeting thoroughly came out of a discussion, not a discussion on a resolution, but just a discussion. That's how I understood it, right?
No,
We had it on our
it was
agenda.
sent to committee by this board, the previous county board meeting.
Yes.
I
We
don't know if
had,
you were, I
yes,
don't know that you were here at that one.
yes. If we had that discussion in the health committee, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
And it was on the agenda.
it was on the agenda. for
Oh,
that.
was it? Okay, good.
Yes, it was.
Okay, good.
Yep, because the board sent it to the Health and Human Services
Okay.
for discussion, so it became an agenda item for that board meeting.
But there wasn't a draft of any resolution.
There was no draft of a resolution. So at that point, the public, you might have seen that just as a topic of discussion.
Correct.
Okay,
And it went from Health and Human
Service
Services
to
to
planning
planning and
and
policy.
right.
That's right.
For an additional discussion
Okay,
before it came here, so it probably went through more than any other resolution ever normally does.
so I,
Touched two committees.
okay,
before it
and
came.
I might be wrong, and I'm always one to admit when I'm wrong. I don't know if my wife agrees with that, but I don't seem to recall that specific discussion on the planning and policy agenda. Because I am on the planning and policy and I wasn't present, but I don't seem to remember that that particular topic of discussion was on the planning and policy where the resolution came out of.
We added it at that meeting.
That is a concern then.
See, but
Right,
then,
and that's the concern I'm trying to address here, because how would the public know that this might possibly be discussed if it's not on the original agenda? And I'm talking about the transparency portion of this. If we want to be transparent, then it should be on the agenda item that's publicly posted. Does that make sense, Doug?
Frank, what about if we, in committee, talked about just general discussions, then delayed it a month and put it on the agenda
For the next.
for that committee for the next
Exactly,
meeting,
yep.
and then it would come to this body?
That's the process I envision. Yep,
I mean, it just would take an extra month, but.
yep.
It's
Yeah.
rare that one of those items would necessarily have to be.
Right, except Joe, I think
through.
that's where where Doug and John were going, is because this is the only rule that starts out with as a general rule. All of the other rules start with it shall or it will and so forth. So I believe, as I understand from John here, and John, I'll let you explain it.
I mean, I would agree the resolution that was presented at the last meeting could have waited, another month or so, but sometimes there are issues that could come up that require committee and then board action, and to wait another month. There may be a deadline for a grant application, for example. And sometimes there's quick turnarounds on things like that. So I believe that might have been the intent of that language in the board rules. As a general rule, all substantive agenda items shall be on the agenda and considered at a committee meeting. I think that's definitely the intent, so that the other commissioners and the public can see what's on the agenda. But occasionally there are things on there that may have a deadline that come up that to wait an extra month may not be feasible.
But John, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of those things that are last minute appear on the agenda. They do not come out of general discussion, correct?
True. Yeah. And so sometimes we're making, last day amendments to the agenda item. So generally that's the case. And I think the intent has always been, get everything that we want to discuss on those committee agendas to discuss. And I believe that as a general rule, just recognizes those rare instances where maybe that's not possible.
Yeah.
So is there a timeline? Like if you got a meeting at 9 and we put it on the agenda at 8 that morning, does that count as being on the agenda?
I think that there is a law for that. I think is what is it, 24 hours or 3 days or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, Doug? 18 hours.
So as the board rules, can we change that to 30 minutes? I'm just asking, to me, we're splitting hairs on some of this, and the people do complain about government moving at a slow pace. We're adding another time to it. I'm just a little surprised at it. We don't vote on it. We voted it out of committee, but then it comes to the board meeting, and that's when everybody gets to shirtless see it and vote on it. So I don't know. I thought it worked pretty good the last time. We had the discussion at the board meeting. So
Well, and I guess I'm just a rules guy. I would like to think that we followed all the procedures that were laid out. But I think that we already have discovered a couple of wrinkles in the process here. My discussion today is how do we fix that so that we don't fall into the same trap next time? Whether it's rewording the current section 2.1 of the agenda portion of it, or whether it's a new rule required. I agree with Joe that I would like to see it. If there's a discussion that comes out of because something happened that morning or last night, and it's not a critical issue that's not going to impact us, then I would like to see it on the next agenda item of that committee before it gets put onto the board agenda.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, Fred, but I do agree with Commissioner Dannenberg on this. I mean, if we're going to put everything through committee, I mean, I think that's good that folks see that, but at the same time, committees are only composed of 5 or 6 folks, right? So if we're going to have a discussion, I prefer that discussion to be at the board level, where there's 11 commissioners and each district is represented, right? So I do think, the board rule as a general rule, they should be considered, which I think is fair. but putting that everything has to go through committee, it may die in committee, in which case there may be 5 or 6 commissioners that don't get a chance to, weigh in on that. So I think overall fairness would say, let's make sure that, we err on the side of every district, being part of that discussion.
Right. So my point is, and I appreciate the comment. It was voted on at the last board meeting to stream all the committee meetings. And one of the reasons I heard was for the sake of transparency. When we're not as transparent as we think we ought to be, are we opening ourselves up for not being as transparent as we think we are, I guess?
No, and I think one of the good points of the live streaming is that going forward, Health and Human Services will be on YouTube, planning will be on YouTube. So if you want to catch that discussion, residents and commissioners can catch that discussion as well. So, I mean, that's for me, one of the big pluses of that is that those discussions are still there. But saying that everything has to go through committee before it gets to the larger board.
If it becomes a resolution.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to change the board rules to, reflect resolutions, I mean, I have my own position on resolutions, so,
Okay, you know what, Doug? You could probably wordsmith this to come up with something by the end.
Commissioner
by the time.
Terpstra had
Yes.
his hand up a while ago.
Yeah, okay.
There's a resolution from the administration it's on today's agenda. That didn't go to any committee meeting, did it?
What resolution?
The resolution to declare Tuesday,
Yeah.
right? Yep, didn't. Oh, those are resolutions that come from.
Those don't come out of committee, though.
Yeah, they don't come out of committee.
They come out of administration.
Right.
So that other resolution, you
Right.
could have just said administration, you put it on it.
Yeah.
Doug, what do you
think?
think?
Yeah,
You get the gist of what they're saying, right?
I do
Okay.
get the
All right.
gist, and
I mean, we can talk around and round and round and round, right? Right? And get nowhere.
I'll try to address this. The delicate thing is, we had a motion to change the resolution. And if we're not careful, then at the board level, you can't even make that, you can't change the resolution. Then it's got to go back to committee. Committee's got to look at the change and then you get back up. So it was an interesting procedural issue that really made us dust off Robert's rules and our own rules. It happens very infrequently. And I think we probably are spending, it's good to talk about it, but we don't want to get so hung up on our rules that you can't even get the county's business through. Because most of the time, there's support for our resolutions, and 99% of the time, they're not that controversial to merit, overly regulating the whole process to get them advanced. But I'll try to do a little bit work on it, Commissioner, to tighten it a little bit.
Good. All right. Now, we need to vote on this. Sherry?
The board rules?
It was.
Just
it's
to
a
receive
motion.
them.
To receive. Okay.
Just to receive them as a report.
Yep. Sherry?
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink?
Yes.
Mr. Hofler?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra?
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra?
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Fenske?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next thing is under action items from administration. Doug?
Sure,
please.
Mr. Chair, to make a motion to approve and authorize the board chairperson and clerk register to sign the resolution declaring Tuesday, November 23, 2021 as Michigan Adoption Day in Ottawa County.
Second.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions?
Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I just really want to encourage people to take a hard look at that day. And if your schedule allows to participate, I know some of us have had a chance to show up for that. It's a big day. It's an important day. And if you can work into your schedule, I think, for goodness sakes, that's an event that we need to show up at.
And I believe it's in Grand Haven this year.
Yes, it is.
It's at the main court instead of
Yes.
here.
Because they need more room.
Yeah.
It's too crowded there. Jerry, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Terpstra?
Yes.
Mr. Hofler?
Yes.
Mr. Zelstra?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Fenske?
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
From administration, number 2, Mr. DeYoung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the subrecipient monitoring policy, I move to approve the subrecipient monitoring policy for review and comment. This is the second reading.
It's been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Jerry, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hofler?
Yes.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Zelstra?
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra?
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink?
Yes.
Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Fenske?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Appointments, none. Discussion items, citizen survey result. Who is giving, Shannon is giving us that.
Oh, good afternoon, board. It's a pleasure for me to be here to present the citizen survey results with Epic MRA. Just a little history of the citizen survey. Ottawa County began conducting its citizen survey in 2006 in advance of a strategic planning session that the board was undertaking at that time. They needed some public input, public perception data to inform that strategic planning process. And at that time, the county selected a really great pollster, Epic MRA, out of Lansing, Michigan, to conduct the survey. Epic MRA remains our contractor to be doing that. And today, John Kavanaugh is here to really dig into the results of that survey. So I just want to invite John up to share the results.
Thank you for the introduction, Shannon, and thank you, board, for entertaining us again with the survey results. As Shannon said, I'm John Kavanaugh. I'm a co-founder of the firm, and it's a familiar spot to be in. As she noted, we've been conducting these surveys biennially since 2006. So we have a pretty big trove of data going back, obviously, that long. And many of the same questions get asked, or at least a very minor variation on the same questions. And we have the ability to track and to present to you the tracking of public opinion on a variety of different issues over time. What's nice about this in conducting it every couple of years is that there is room to insert timely questions or topic-specific questions that are before the board or before the county. And this year, this past survey is no exception to that. We've tested receptivity to road millages on the preservation of land. This last time around, we posed a question involving a hypothetical county involvement in affordable housing, as well as awareness on groundwater issues, which has those were unique to this time around. Also unique to this time around is we were to have conducted this in 2020. Unfortunately, the virus got in the way, and it was decided that why don't we put this off? And we did until earlier this year. That delay notwithstanding, many of the results reflect the type of citizen discomfort and anxiety that were exhibited during the recession years of 2008, 2010. There was economic anxiety then, and it was reflected in tracking the numbers on a variety of different atmospheric questions. Are you going in the right direction? Are you on the wrong track? How would you rate the services? Are they positive or negative? What's the most important issue facing you? Back in those recession years, there was a heavy emphasis on economic development jobs, obviously, and a much greater sensitivity to the personal property tax burden. We always ask a question, are your taxes too high? In return for the services you get, would you say your taxes are too high, too low, or are they about right? And if they say too high, we'll follow it up with, well, is that much too high or just somewhat? And back in those years, it was evident there was a great deal of economic anxiety among the citizens of Ottawa County, like there was everywhere else. This time around, the numbers didn't exhibit the same acute movement as during those recession years, but they nevertheless are affected. And we've seen this in other surveys we've done, not only for governmental entities, but quasi-governmental entities like school districts, where a large Southeast Michigan school district, we had done a survey pre-pandemic. Their approval, their positive rating was in the 90 percentile, which is the highest we've ever recorded. During the pandemic, that dropped about 25 points. Yours isn't as dramatic, but still, I mean, you're talking about approval ratings in the 70% range. It's nothing to sneeze at to begin with. It's just that they have dropped, and some of them also have dropped. What you'll see throughout this, however, is that there is no clear dog to kick for people's frustration and being fed up with all the ramifications of the pandemic and the disruption and inconvenience that it's caused in all of our lives. But you can't identify a single reason for it. You can't heap the blame on any particular entity. And that shows up clearly in the data. A little bit about the methodology. We interviewed 400 people. That yields a plus or minus margin of error of just under 5%. That means if the vote is 50-50, if you interviewed 95 times out of 100, it will land either between 55 and 45. As you move further away from 50%, that margin of error shrinks. So many of these results are unequivocal. We start out by gauging customer satisfaction. It's general atmospherics. Is the state going in the right or wrong direction? How about the county? How about your local government? What's your biggest problem? Perceptions about county services, public opinion about tax options, and top of mind responses to general likes and dislikes and preferences. Unique, as I mentioned, were inquiry into groundwater issues and the rating of the health department's management of the pandemic. We also measured what support there might be for a 0.1 mil increase for affordable housing. As I noted, the uncertainty and frustration caused by COVID has affected those numbers. Notwithstanding that fact, you are still looked to provide services and are generally appreciated for the services that are provided. That's true of both the county and the local government, from where the respondent answered. The provision of governmental services, even if it means raising taxes, still wins out over a statement that says we should keep taxes and fees low, even if that means a cut in services. That trend has been going since about 2012 and continues to move up on the provision of services end of things. And the purported inadequacy of communication is sort of a catch-all reason for why I'm dissatisfied with, to the extent I'm dissatisfied with county government, is they don't communicate. It doesn't show up in large numbers, but it does rise to the top or near the top in open-ended questions. What can the county do better? Where does this rank in the hierarchy of things that you'd like to see done? It's kind of an amorphous catch-all, and I think is the proverbial dog to be kicked as the reason why I'm frustrated with the state of things over the past 18 months. Here's why I'm concluding those things. The reversal in the right direction versus wrong track, that has been reversed. There had been an upward trend that the county was in the right direction versus the wrong track since 2012. That was halted and actually declined in our 2021 survey. That is especially profound in the state. They are underwater. There are far more majority answering wrong direction versus right track. That's always the case. The hierarchy of governmental levels is that the state is viewed less enthusiastically than is the county, than my local and township or city government. But it is especially profound this time around with the state. The proportion of people who say it's better, Ottawa County is better versus worse than its West Michigan neighbors drops 10 points from 2018. I might note too that 2018 was sort of a landmark year. You saw the highest recordings that we've done since 2006 in terms of positivity of citizens' attitudes. So it might be an unfair comparison. And later on in these slides, I'll show some time series where the 2021 results sort of land on 2016, 2014 area. It's important to note too, that to the extent your positive ratings or approval ratings have dropped, they aren't made up in disapproval. They're made up in undecided. They're non-committal. So the big takeaway is there is a diminishing. The enthusiasm has diminished from 2018. It doesn't mean they're down on you. If unlike the state in the right direction, wrong track where they're underwater, you're nowhere near that. And again, there's an 8-point drop in the proportion of 9s and 10s on a 10-point scale, measuring the likelihood of recommending Ottawa County as a place to live. But again, that difference isn't made up with 0 to 5 scores. It's made up in the more middling 6 to 8 on the 0 to 10 scale. Taxes too high, it rises to 30%. I mentioned that question earlier. In return for what you get in services, do you think your tax is too high, too low, or are they about right? We follow the two highs up. Would that be much or somewhat? The rise in that 30% level to 30% is always all in the somewhat portion. So it's sort of it's not an intensely held belief. The negative rating for counties handling of finances rises, but the intensity of the sentiment is not strong. And 9 and 10 scores on the 10-point scale for likelihood of recommended Ottawa County as a place to live, it drops. But again, it's made up in the scores of 6 to 8 rather than 0 to 5. And proof of the fact that the residents remain satisfied, even though there is general discomfort, is the positive ratings for the delivery of services remains high. The county health department received very high ratings, positive ratings in their handling of the pandemic. Nearly two-thirds opt for maintained services over keep taxes and fees low. Important to note, if there's going to be action on groundwater, a majority report being unaware of any serious difficulties there. The 0.1 mil for affordable housing receives a total majority yes vote. I'll get more into that in a bit. Affordable housing as an issue has risen over the past several survey studies. And for the first time, I believe, ranks the highest in an open-ended, what's the most important problem facing Ottawa County today? It's an open-ended question. It's rather significant that the top of mind response, affordable housing, tops the list of all responses. Again, personal financial concerns in the recession years colored the results in those surveys. Unlike those years, it doesn't translate into antipathy toward county government or local governmental entities. Here's the right direction, wrong track comparison in 21. The state dropped nearly 30 points from the 2018 in the right direction score, down to 35%. You've dropped 18 points, but that 18-point drop was not made up in wrong track answers. It was made up in undecided. Unlike the state, they're underwater. And to a lesser extent, local government rating on right track, wrong direction. Ottawa compared to its neighbors, you're still high, better, the same as in 2018. Your strategic goals, long-term economic growth and maintaining the strong financial position, those two have jockeyed for first and second. All of them come out as being important, but those two tend to jockey for first and second place among the four. None of them end up with very high, no, that's not important at all. This is a little difficult to read off the screen, but it's a demonstration of those strategic plan goals as a top priority. That's the time series dating back to 2008. I didn't put 2006 up there because it would become really unreadable. Biggest prompted problem. We read a list of problems and ask the respondent which of those is the most important. Affordable housing came out number 1 in 2021 at 21%. That ranked 3rd on that list in our 2018. It was 7th on the list in 2016. Rate your local township and city government. Give it a positive rating of excellent or pretty good, or a negative rating of just fair or poor. Total positive rating of 83%. It's up. I'm sorry, it matches what it was, local governments, for a positive rating in 2018, identical numbers. Yours are down 3 points, but that's insignificant statistically. Remember the 4.9% margin of error. Rate your county government. Is it excellent or pretty good, or just fair or poor? You've got below 1 in 5 people getting a negative rating. Fewer than 1 in 5 people. Here's how it's an open-ended question. What does the county do the best job at providing? That tends to, those parentheses are the ranking, order ranking over the years. What needs the most improvement? It's a little bit interesting that roads plus snow removal dropped 20 points, even though it's still number 1. The others made up the balance on that difference. That's an unprompted, by the way. It's an open-ended question. Perceived safety, 99 out of 100 say I feel safe in my neighborhood. That might, and it does, fall in line with that unprompted, what needs the most improvement. I mean, nothing comes higher. Police and law enforcement at 4%, single digits, it's insignificant. 35, 1 out of 3, over 1 out of 3 couldn't give an answer to that open-ended question. They didn't have any sort of top-of-mind response in terms of what needed the most improvement. And that's borne out here. 99% say they feel either very or mostly safe where they live. Perception of tax burden, is it too high, too low, or is it about right? Got a total of 30%. You've got to go back to 2010 to find that total of a combination that's much too high and somewhat too high. But I draw attention to the blue portion of the bars. 8% of that total 30 in 2021 is much too high. It's no different than the prior years, except when you hark back to 2008 and 2010. Here we have competing statements. They're rotated when they are presented to the respondent. Which of these two statements comes closer to your view? You should keep taxes and fees low, even if it means a reduction in services. We need to maintain services, even if it means an increase in taxes. The services has trended up. Keep services has trended up since it was first introduced back in 2006. For the most part, it obviously dipped during the recession years of 2008 and 2010, but it has moved up steadily since then. Rate county financial management, it has dropped, but imperceptibly. It's insignificant. The amount's dropped from 55% in 2018 down to 52%. And if you're coming in above 50%, you're in good shape. We do this question in school districts, and very few of them get that high. Where to cut if needed? Nearly 3 out of 4 respondents couldn't mention anything. They didn't know. If it were necessary to cut a program, for the county commission to cut a program in order to balance the budget, which program should they cut? Parks and Rec ranked real high about, 6 years ago. That has gone down to insignificant 5% being mentioned. And the usual suspects of county staff and the board's salaries, et cetera, come in at 1 or 2 mentions out of the 400. This was encouraging in that the health department's COVID-19 management had nearly 7 out of 10 giving them a positive rating of excellent or pretty good. And 1 out of 5 giving them a negative rating. Given the amount of attention and press coverage and controversy surrounding COVID and the reactions thereto, I was surprised somewhat to see that level of positive rating for a county health department. Would you vote? There have been discussions with the county commission about levying a 0.1 mil tax for affordable housing in Ottawa County. If that election were held today, would you vote yes to support it, or would you vote no to oppose it? Total support comes in at 57% yes. But note the blue section of the bar. That's below 50%. You only get to 57% by adding that 10%. That 10% was initially undecided on the question. And interviewers are instructed to press the respondent and say, well, if you had to decide right now, which way would you lean? And that's what that lean means in the legend, solid versus lean. The 47% immediately said yes. Another 10% said yes when they were pressed on it to ask which way they leaned. It is general conventional wisdom that if you're under 50% going into a solid yes vote, going into a ballot question, you've got a lot of work to do. And if you're under 60% in total yes with leaners, you've got a lot of work to do. However, that wasn't an actual proposal that was put forth. It was, discussions are being had and very few details were laid out. It's important to note that 62% of all respondents said they would be more likely to support that if county government weren't on its own, but rather partnered with private entities as well as charitable nonprofits. So to the extent there are any concrete plans in that regard, this might guide some decisions on how to proceed with it. Awareness of groundwater issues. Are you very or somewhat aware of it? Only 14% said they're very aware of groundwater issues. And it was a rather comprehensive rendition of the problems faced, that the depletion of it, some contamination of it, et cetera, and it's affecting irrigation and drinking water. Notwithstanding that, only 43% said they were total, either very or somewhat. And interestingly, most of the people who are unaware said they were very unaware of it. Have you had contact with the county department? I'm kind of surprised that that went down. You can see through most of the years we've asked that question, it's been about 1 out of every 3 people would say, yeah, I've contacted the county. I'm particularly a little bit surprised by that, given the fact that, there was a shutdown and people were home a lot, and, what else are you going to do but call a county health department? Nevertheless, only about a quarter of the population, or at least our respondents, said so. However, the ones who did remain satisfied with the response they got. Better than nearly 9 out of 10 were satisfied with it. Should you do more in this area? Is the county doing enough, or are they doing too much? You'll obviously be much better informed when you can look this over at your leisure. But I lined up the ranking of prior surveys going back to 2012 of these items where they were in common with those prior surveys. And just like communication was a big top of mind issue, keeping county residents informed about programs and services has always ranked high as something. Mental health, providing mental health services beginning in 2014 jumped as a place where more, this is a ranking where the county ought to be doing more. Notwithstanding the fact that a large number were very unaware of groundwater issues, that still ranks 3rd when it's recited to people out of a list of about a dozen issue areas. So if you mention protecting the declining supply of groundwater, that ranks 3rd where you're asked to be doing more. Providing substance abuse services jumps up. Promoting Ottawa County, working with local governments, those pretty much jockey for the same position year after year in the 4th through 6th rankings. As I said, there are about a dozen recited, but that total more should be done category starts to drop off precipitously below 27%. So I didn't include a slide on that. In keeping with awareness on groundwater issues, 43% say they're aware of what county activities. That has dropped a little. And again, I'm a little bit surprised given lockdown due to COVID and the attention paid to the pandemic that there wouldn't be more self-reported awareness. Have you received information about the county? This is encouraging that you've got about 2/3 of your citizens have received something. The Ottawa County website has moved up in use and that's at the expense of TV news and radio news and newspapers. What has gone up are social networks and emailed information as well as text messages. This is in keeping with a movement toward greater use of your website and a greater reliance on electronic communication modes. Where have you received most of your information? They still receive most of it via mail, but the website has moved up, as has particularly social networks and emailed information. Newspapers have dropped precipitously since 2018. Where would you prefer to receive your information? Still, hard copy mailed information is preferred by a plurality, but emails jumps up and social networks jumped up from 2016. use of the county website. Total use is about 6 in 10. And that, in a nutshell, is your 18-minute interview that we conducted among 400 respondents that were stratified across the county based on population. I am more than happy to answer questions. There's about a 225-page cross-tabulation report if you really want to cure for insomnia. But I'm available through Shannon, I'm sure, for any questions you might have that pique your interest. I'd be more than happy to share them with you on a phone call or to send you some information.
Commissioners, any questions right now? Otherwise, we can get those information to Shannon and to yourself, and we can respond later.
Sounds good. Again, I want to thank you very much. This is always a great pleasure to work with the county staff here.
Right, if I can ask a quick question.
Okay.
When you say state, were you able to identify who the finger pointing was at the state? Was it state, just general?
In general, would you say the state of Michigan is headed in the right direction, or is it seriously off on the wrong track? That script is then insert county government, insert local government.
Okay.
And the state did a complete reversal from 2018.
You know, I'm glad to see that the health department has received a high rating. I know they've been under a lot of stress. So I appreciate seeing that.
Anyone else? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Next thing is a report of county administrator, the strategic business plan update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just spend just a couple minutes on this, but since 2006, we've done a strategic plan at the county, and we went through that exercise earlier this year. And as you recall, we did keep our vision statement of where you belong, as well as our mission statement that we're committed to excellence in the delivery of cost-effective public services. The commission also chose to retain our 4 goals to maintain and improve the strong financial position of the county, to contribute to the long-term economic, social, and environmental health of the county. Number 3 is to maintain and enhance communication with citizens, employees, and other stakeholders. And finally, to continually improve the county's organization and services. And we have objectives that are lined up with each of those goals, and those are before you. But with respect to our first goal of our strong financial position, we've submitted our budget on time for fiscal year 2022. We achieved our goal of a 0% health insurance increase, which is pretty unique, I can tell you, in the public sector world. And our insurance authority still has a healthy financial balance to cover the risks, as well as to provide grants for risk reduction matters. Our goal goes on. We do speak with our legislators and meet with them on a regular basis, and we work with our lobbyists to support or oppose legislation that could have a significant either positive or negative impact to our county. And again, we adopted a balanced budget back in September for fiscal year 2022, and we still are maintaining our AAA bond rating. We're also, again, trying to contribute to the long-term economic, social, environmental health of the county. So I think he mentioned affordable housing being one of the significant concerns of the community. And so we're working with Housing Next on that. And we may see some more activity with respect to ARPA funds. We're in regular communication with quarterly meetings with our road commission. And we work with our partners such as Lakeshore Advantage in terms of economic development issues. And we're still continuing our comprehensive farmland preservation strategy as well. We continue to provide and receive grants through CMH to provide mental health services. And I think you saw there on the citizen survey that most people felt that they live in a safe community. And that is thanks to our prosecuting attorneys, sheriffs, and the courts as well. We are working to on our Grand River Greenway, and as you know, we've fully funded that, and we'll continue that process. And we're trying to maintain enhanced communication with our citizens, employees, and other stakeholders. So we are going to continue our annual updates on Gov Delivery, as well as our social media communications. And we are going to be beginning, obviously, the newsletter that the county board just approved a meeting or two ago. So that's going to be starting up. And we're continuing to improve our website. I think he mentioned more and more people are looking at our website for information. And obviously, we live stream our Board of Commission meetings, and we are about to begin live streaming our 4 committee meetings as well. And we do citizen surveys every 2 years, as well as employee surveys. And we're continuing with our brown bag lunches with our employees, just to get a sense of some of the questions or concerns that the employees have. Our 4th goal in terms of trying to continually improve our organization's services. We're continuing our employee training on CATA and Lean. We're looking at some kiosks, possibly in the courts and the clerk's office, to provide some additional information to the public. And we're having our Department of Strategic Impact continue to evaluate a lot of our programs and services to determine that evaluate that they're running at top effectiveness. So that's the other thing is we're using topics to do training for our employees. We're going to be implementing our wage study in results in January. And that's something that we're going to continually assess, because in this current job market, it's been very challenging to retain and attract employees, especially when many employers are offering pretty significant bonuses and significantly higher pay. And so that's something that we're taking a look at to see, are there better ways for us to retain and attract employees in a, to me, an unprecedented job market. So those are some of the things that we're doing on as part of our strategic plan. I do want to provide a couple other updates if I have just a moment. Our ARPA task force is meeting this Thursday, and hopefully they'll be in a position to make some final recommendations to the board with respect to recommendations on how to spend the ARPA funding that we're going to be receiving, both the process by which applications will be received, the criteria by which they'll be evaluated. They're looking at putting funds into specific buckets of funding or categories. And so we're going to be discussing that on Thursday. And if there's a general recommendation from the task force on that, that'll then go through the Finance Committee and then ultimately to the Board of Commissioners, because we do want the board to really approve that before we start that process of spending that money. As mentioned earlier, I think we're having a meeting to discuss some of the topics that we want to put in our First County newsletter. I think that meeting's not this week, maybe next week to do that. And we're going to be meeting with the unions to discuss the results of the wage study. We're hoping we could just do that as implement that as part of a letter of understanding, but that's something that really we have to sit down and discuss that with them. And that'll be happening later this month. Just a brief thing on COVID. Obviously, COVID's still present here, and our positivity rate here in the county is at about 20%. And I know the health department wants that under 8%. And we're seeing, I think, nationwide, fewer cases, but still in Michigan and the county, an increase in cases. I'm sure you heard, but the FDA did grant emergency use authorization for a COVID vaccine for children ages 5 through 11. And if you recall, when the health department issued its pre-K through 6th grade mask mandate, one of the triggers to end that mask mandate was the availability of a vaccine. And since that vaccine became available, I believe November 2nd or 3rd, that 60-day clock has started. So that would have it expire right after the new year. So when the kids return to school after the Christmas break, while masks will be recommended, there won't be a mask mandate. And The other thing, and not to tread lightly on Doug's legal territory, because I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong. But as you're aware, OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, through President Biden, had issued a federal vaccine mandate for employers with 100 or more employees. Those employees would have to be fully vaccinated or be subject to weekly testing and have to wear a mask if you're unvaccinated. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals enjoined that, or basically put a temporary halt to the implementation of that mandate. And Doug is anticipating that the other federal court of appeals, including the Sixth Circuit, which covers Michigan, will probably issue a decision on that as well. The county itself, we're taking the position that we're not going to be implementing a vaccine mandate for any of our employees unless we are required to do so through this federal vaccine mandate. So if the courts ultimately decide this federal mandate is valid, legal, constitutional, whatever that term is, we will follow the rule of law. But if the courts say, no, this isn't a valid mandate from the federal government, then as you've heard from our health officer, she has indicated we're not going to be implementing a vaccine mandate for employees here. So that's my report. I hope I didn't butcher the legal part of that too badly.
Close. Thanks, John.
Perfect, but close.
Thanks, John. Next thing is general information, comments, or meetings attended. Anyone?
I had a question for John on his, okay, yeah. Do you think, John, you mentioned that the Fifth District Court put a hold on the national vaccine mandate. You think that our resolution 2 weeks ago had any influence on it?
I did not get a call from anyone at the federal government.
But we were ahead of them, right? Good. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Anything else from you, Greg? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments. I wanted to thank Shannon and her team that put up the 231 10K run a couple of weeks ago. I know that they had over 400 people out there participating. Myself and you were out there as well. I walked the 4 miles. I won't tell you the time, but I did walk. It was a beautiful day. A lot of folks seem to have enjoyed it as well. And I also want to thank Regina, who I believe has organized a tour for the board this afternoon at 3:30. Encourage everyone to join us at the GRCC campus.
Anyone else?
Oh, I have one other thing. John, I know that the next week, we're meeting for planning and policy. I have received a couple of calls regarding House Bill 4722, which is the home rental bill that is at the State House. I just wonder if you could maybe address that next week.
House Bill 4720, is that the short-term rentals?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have a couple of local representatives from Northwest Ottawa County that are pretty upset about that. So we need to be supportive of their efforts to stop that from happening.
I know we've indicated our opposition to that bill. I can give an update at the committee meeting.
So I also would like to echo my appreciation for Shannon and Stephanie and their work on behalf of the county residents and the Parks Board and getting, how many dollars have you gotten in so far over the years for a road?
Years it's been around a little over $60,000.
Yeah, for trails. Yeah, that's remarkable. Thank you for that work that you do too. And yes, Frank did come trailing. His wife came running ahead of him by about 10 minutes.
I did run the first or the last yard across the line.
Yolanda came running in about 10 minutes ahead of him. Yeah. Okay, public comment. This is a second time. Anyone can address the commission? And do you have a list?
I have no one.
Okay, all right.
I didn't sign up, but may I?
Sure. You get 2 minutes. Give us your name and where you're from.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Lene Monera, Allendale. Thank you to the commissioners who a few weeks ago recognized that whether or not to get vaccinated should be a choice. Hopefully the commissioners will recognize that that same sentiment should translate and transfer to other issues. But the board does send a lot of conflicting messages. And I want to raise awareness to a religious resolution that was actually presented to the board last July of 2020. Mr. Chairman, you refused to put it on the agenda. The resolution was requested before Baker Lofts in Holland sued the Ottawa County Health Department after the health department refused to allow Baker Lofts to hold wedding ceremonies at its venue. The reason, in the words of Ottawa County's corporate counsel, quote, "a wedding ceremony is not a religious worship service," as those terms are used by the governor, end of quote. Now, commissioners, Christians believe marriage is a union between a man and a woman, sanctioned, designed by God. For the Ottawa County to dispute that it's a religious exercise of one's religious beliefs, a wedding ceremony, is baffling. Also disturbing is that Ottawa County is allowing the governor to define what constitutes a religious worship service in Ottawa County. I only raise this because it's another example of how the county has continued to align with the state and not the residents. I mean, we saw it with Libertas Christian School. We see it with the mask mandate. That's why I raise it. And lest us forget, this is a governor who said abortion is, quote, life-sustaining. Do we want to continue to align with the state? Now, the vaccine resolution a few weeks ago, it was a start, but it's not enough. Commissioners, get this county back to the values that made us great. Get this county back to freedom of religion.
Thank you. With that,
I have one on Zoom.
okay, go ahead. Sylvia, go ahead.
My name is Sylvia Rohde and I live in Allendale. Ottawa County requires action to restore and protect freedom to all citizens. The resolution passed voicing concern for county employees states, the board recognizes that COVID-19 testing where individuals have no symptoms could lead to false determinations of COVID-19 and result in unnecessary isolation and contact tracing, which would needlessly impair its resources. We are disappointed the county did not intervene on behalf of student athletes facing devastating mandatory testing, false determinations, unnecessary isolation and contact tracing over the past school year. Numerous student athletes were negatively impacted, including mental health decline and exclusion from state finals due to mandatory testing of other athletes. We asked the county to stop pushing testing on children. On November 3, Lisa Stefanowski commented, "We respect the rights of parents to choose what medical measures are right for their child. Yet the health department continues the mask order for children through January 2. They have already endured over 220 days of masks. While it is beyond clear COVID-19 does not significantly impact children. There have been 0 deaths in children, and we have 0 confidence left in the decisions the health department makes in the place of parents. Vaccine clinics for little ones are now taking place on school campuses. School grounds should be free of controversial clinics, and we ask the county to remove them so parents can be confident their right to direct the care of their children will be respected. Constitutional freedoms and parental rights need to be restored and protected in Ottawa County. You have the statutory authority to act and replace the health director, as well as to defund activities of the health department. Please use your authority and act. Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia. With that, we're adjourned.